Today we're going to be talking about personal preparedness planning for individuals and families. As an MRC member, we can't call on you to help others unless you are ready to help yourself. And that includes those loved ones that you are responsible for. Whether it's family, whether it's friends, whether it's neighbors, whether it's pets, everyone deserves to have a plan that is capable of keeping them safe and mitigating the effects of an emergency when it happens. So today we're going to be talking about the creation of a plan as well as the components that go into that plan. It's all in your plans. Plans need to be flexible, accessible, and easy for you to remember. Not only is it important to have a written plan that everyone in the household knows, but to review that plan annually and practice accessing using items and equipment that you may need that are mentioned specifically in that plan. Enlist others to develop a plan with you, especially if you're going to be calling them out in time of need. Share it with your family, with caregivers, with pet sitters, babysitters, neighbors, and others. For example, if part of your plan talks about who is going to get into your home to retrieve your personal documents if you're not there, and you say that you're going to be calling neighbor X and put the key for neighbor X in a certain spot, then make sure that neighbor X is willing to do this task and has an understanding of what their responsibilities are. Some planning essentials that you would want to consider. Plans are only good if they're easy to understand. You don't need a 50-page document to teach your family how to get out in case of a fire. Plans are only good if they remain updated. If you talk about evacuation using a 6-person vehicle and you've downgraded to a 4-person vehicle but still have the same needs, you have to modify your plan. Plans are only good if everyone who needs them is familiar with them, which means teaching the oldest member of our families all the way down to the youngest. It does no good to plan if you don't invest in the supplies to support what you plan. If you talk about shelter-in-place plans and say that you are going to have a transistor radio or solar-powered flashlights or duct tape to seal up areas in case of a chemical spill, but you don't invest in putting those things into a kit, or you don't have those in your home in a place that's readily accessible, then your plan is not good. Make sure that the supplies that you have are current and in good condition. Some things, such as batteries, expire. You should inventory your supplies on an annual basis at minimum. Safety equipment needs to be maintained, including things like your fire extinguishers, smoke detectors, and carbon monoxide alarms. Keep a schedule for checking these. A great rule of thumb is during daylight savings time in fall and spring to make those your times that you check all of your safety equipment. More planning essentials. You may want to consider placing decals on your doors or your windows to help responders identify who lives in the home, especially if you have young children who can't help themselves or you have family pets. Letting police, fire, and EMS know when they come to your home who's there and where to find them is a helpful resource. Have spare keys for your home on the property or at a neighbor's house in case someone needs to retrieve your pets, turn off your utilities, or do something in your home without your presence. Create a rally point away from your home if you can't get back. Many people will designate a local library or a child's school or a convenience store where every member of the family will meet and take inventory of one another and then decide whether it's safe to go back or not. Have a check-in contact. This should not be somebody from your immediate family, but might be a close friend, a distant relative, with a number that's programmed into anyone's phone and is easy to contact. It's preferable if you have someone without a local area code, because in an emergency, local lines are often overwhelmed and it's hard to get through. But if you call externally to somebody who might be out of region or out of state, it's easier to get and maintain that connection. Think about other programs that might be beneficial for you and your family. The American Red Cross has a program called Safe and Well, where displaced people can register to let family know they are okay. The link is listed below. Red Cross is not the only organization to offer such services. You may want to invest in an app that allows you to track folks. There may be other websites that you can use that would give you important information and resources in times of emergency. But again, you get to write those into your plans. So do your due diligence and research and find out what's going to benefit you. So plans come in all shapes and sizes. There are evacuation plans for big things like hurricanes, all the way down to the little teeny tiny things, like a house fire. Although at the time, a house fire may not seem teeny tiny to you. When you are coming up with an evacuation consideration, the most important thing is drill, drill, drill. You need to know your escape routes well. If possible, identify multiple escape routes and practice them. These can be routes out of your house, out of your neighborhood, or out of your town. For in-house plans, think about accessibility as well as ease of reach. You may need to crawl instead of walk to exits in the case of something like a fire. Practice different methods of evacuating, locating landmarks on your hands and knees, having ladders that you can use to evacuate via windows if getting to a door is not convenient. If you have a service animal, practice your escape route with it regularly and teach a specific command to go this route. Keep critical safety items such as fire extinguishers or fire blankets within easy reach. The most vulnerable members of the family should have bedrooms closest to the exits or on the bottom floor. This includes individuals with mobility impairments or family members who might need extra assistance evacuating, such as children or older adults. For general evacuation, again, evacuation is the removal of persons or things from an endangered area. We always think of evacuating our house for something like a fire, but again, we could be trying to exit our neighborhood in the case of rising floodwaters to get to safety, whether that be a friend or family member's house, whether that's an emergency shelter. It doesn't really matter. Things like fires, flooding, and extended loss of power are the most likely reasons to evacuate our home and to go someplace else here in New England. However, transportation or industrial accidents may require you to leave quickly and without notice as well. Officials will use news outlets to spread information, and having good information is going to inform your decision on whether to evacuate. Official sites like Emergency Management Site, the Health Department site, state police, or others may give vital details. Knowing what radio channels or what TV channels service your area and provide ongoing emergency information is also critical. Listen carefully for information you may need, and if necessary, write down sources of information that you should incorporate into your plan. Your life, the lives of your family, pets, and responders may be at risk if you stay. You need to make a careful decision whether evacuation is feasible and necessary and desirable, but weigh it against the impact on others. Do not wait until the last moment, as traffic can be worse and accommodations, fuel, and housing limited. If you have the capability to evacuate ahead of time, sometimes it's better to be safe and not need it than to stay and find out that you're trapped and can't use the evacuation plan that you have in place. If you stay, it may be days before help arrives. The types of timelines that we see under blue skies or normal circumstances are not those in emergencies where everyone is calling for help and both material and personal resources are scarce. You may be subject if you stay to imposed curfews to protect yourself or others from lawlessness or to prevent injury from traveling on unsafe roads. Staying means staying at your own risk. So, if you opt to evacuate, the first consideration that you want to have in mind is transportation. You can't go anywhere if you can't get out. Is your vehicle big enough to evacuate your family, your pets, and essential household items? Is your vehicle reliable and unlikely to break down? If you can't drive yourself, whatever the circumstance, do you have someone else you can call on, and have you incorporated that person in your plan? It could be family, it could be friends or neighbors willing to help you evacuate. Do you keep your vehicle fueled above half tank at all times, which is the recommended level? In case of power failure or supply shortages that might prevent refueling, it's always good to know that you can at least get a safe distance away. If you don't keep your car fueled, do you have gas cans that you can use to refill in a pinch? Housing. Where are you going to go? Housing decisions should factor in accessibility, affordability, the number of persons and animals that you're evacuating, and the expected duration of an emergency. If you're evacuating seniors or individuals with special needs, housing options should factor in mobility or functional access, presence of electricity, which might be needed to operate devices that are essential for survival and for general comfort, and the ability to access or prepare foods for specialized diets. For example, if you're a diabetic, you might need access to certain types of food. If you're a nursing mother, again, you need to be able to pump or to prepare formula, or whatever the case might be for the child that's in your care. There are multiple options for housing in an emergency. Family and friends have the advantage of being familiar to you and usually more accommodating. Having people who are like-minded, who are invested in your safety, is always better for your comfort in an emergency. But the reality is we may not have friends or family nearby. Those folks may be evacuating themselves, or they just may not have enough room at the inn. Hotels and motels are another option. They are often convenient. They are often affordable and easy to get to in a pinch. However, they do have some restrictions, such as maybe having a limit on the number of people per room, or not being pet friendly. Researching your hotel ahead of time and knowing the costs and the restrictions is important to know if that is your primary part of your plan. Emergency shelters are also a great option. They are, however, an option of last resort. Emergency shelters are often locations where multiple people are going to be seeking care. They may not be in the location that you want to be. They may lack privacy and other things that you would find to reduce your stress. However, they are going to provide all of the essentials. They will provide food and water and shelter and the ability to toilet yourself. Most shelters are pet friendly. So again, do not choose to stay if you have a community shelter available to you that can provide you care. Some other considerations for housing. Individuals with disabilities should seek housing which helps maintain their routine, such as allowing them to keep items in specific locations, set timers, and remind them of tasks if that's part of their care plan, that allows storage or of assistive technology and equipment. In the instance that a family member must be evacuated to a special needs shelter, for example, a caregiver who knows them should accompany them. Not only should housing be consistent with the person's needs, it will also reduce psychological stress, which will aid in their recovery. All housing options allow service animals. However, they're not required to allow therapy animals or emotional support animals. So again, when considering your options, friends or family or use of a hotel may be preferable to a general shelter. Now I want to talk on a plan that's available here in the state of Vermont. It's known as the Citizen Assistance Registration for Emergencies, or CARE plan. This is developed and overseen by the E911 Care Board, and there is a website that you can go to register for this, or you can call 211 Social Services Hotline. This is a voluntary registry for individuals who may feel like they need some form of assistance during emergencies. It can be due to a medical disability or a physical disability. It could be something like lack of transportation. What you consider a need is self-identifiable, but you can place yourself on this registry, and these are available to fire chiefs or emergency management directors in the community so that they can call and do well checks on individuals if there's an impending or occurring disaster. This is absolutely not a guarantee of assistance, and relying on your personal preparedness plan should always 100% be your first line of defense. However, if your plan fails and you are on a registry such as this, other options may become available to you depending on resources available in your area. Next, I want to move on to the part of planning that involves go bags. A go bag is a term that can actually be used for many things. It's a kit that you can use in your house if you are sheltering in place. It can be a bag that you go with to take with you when you evacuate. These are things that are often pre-positioned in different places. So you may have a home go bag that is on a shelf in a certain room of your home where everybody knows to access it. It may be a car go bag with emergency supplies in case you break down in your vehicle. You may have a go bag at your work or at school or wherever you spend a great deal of time in case you can't get back home and need some essential supplies. So what goes in a go bag? Important documents such as birth certificates, social security cards, passports, titles to your home or car, medical files. These are all things that would typically go into a home go bag. Copies of such items can also go into ancillary go bags. But again, you want to make sure that your documents are all in a safe place where you can grab them and go and where you have access to these. Contact information for loved ones is important, particularly that emergency contact we mentioned earlier. It's always best to have a hard copy list as well as to have the list programmed into your phone for accessibility. You want to examine clothes and food for up to 72 hours. 72 hours is a baseline minimum, and that's usually because 72 hours is about the time it would take for somebody to get to you in emergency. It is also going to account for things like power failures at your local grocery store, where you may not be able to go and buy supplies because there may be no way to ring up your supplies. So again, having those types of things on hand with you that you can bring with you or keep with you is hugely important. Things like your medications or your prescriptions. Talk to your doctor, talk to your veterinarian about having a 90-day supply of medicines if possible, as opposed to just month to month, or having an extra prescription on hand that you can fulfill at a pharmacy somewhere else if you would need to. Keeping comfort items in your go bag is huge. We always think of essentials, but we don't think of that favorite toy or that favorite card game that our family could use to while away the time and reduce stress. We don't think of our favorite pair of socks. Psychological recovery from an emergency is just as important as our physical needs, and having those things on hand for ourselves, for our children, for our pets, knowing what makes us safe and secure in an emergency should always be included in a go kit. If you do have pets, supplies such as collapsible crates, litter pans, leashes, all of those types of things are important to include in a go bag. Full pet supply lists are available from a number of sources such as FEMA or the Humane Society of the United States, but depending on the type of pet that you have and the environment that it needs in order to subsist, your packing list for your pets will change. You want to think about technology and continuity, so chargers for your phone and your computer, things like hearing aid batteries, and a way to charge or replace those. Any type of thing that is going to support your technological needs in emergency and aid in your communication, both with others and in your environment, are all things that you want to consider for your plan. Flashlights, toolkits, other items, headlamps, first aid kits, things like that. All of those come into play to make sure that you are safe in the environment that you're evacuating to, or that you can stay put in your home in a safe way and still be able to maintain that environment. And then last, things like photo members of your family and pets in case you're separated. The worst thing to happen is that you think you're going to rally someplace and somebody doesn't show up, and you're trying to find them, but you don't have a recent photo on hand. Being able to have a photo that you can reference, especially if somebody ends up incapacitated and are in the hospital, or if you have a pet that gets loose to the rest stop and you need to go to a shelter to identify them. Being able to pull out a picture and show the folks that you're asking questions of who is part of your family is an essential part of your go bag. Now I want to talk about some items that you may want to include in your go kit for individuals that may have special needs. Special needs or again, vulnerable populations are a term that we bandy about, but it can be any of us. It's usually most of us. About 60% of folks in our country have some form of disability, whether it's permanent, whether it's temporary, whether it's situational. But again, we know how we best adapt and work in our environment. So when you're planning your go bag, think of those types of things that are going to suit you best. Do you need things like walkers or canes, collapsible wheelchairs, scooters? Do you have specialized medications or need to keep a copy of your medical history to provide to providers? Do you have items such as glucose monitors, test strips, oxygen devices, spare batteries that need to be part of your go bag? Do you use communication aids for better support in your environment, whether you are deaf or hard of hearing, whether you have vision impairment, whether you are nonverbal? Are picture cards going to be helpful or translated material? Do you have apps on your phone that can help with these types of communication needs if you're outside of your comfort zone? Again, those comfort items and memory aids for folks who might have cognitive issues, memory issues, or emotional issues. And again, those photographs that we can also use to identify folks in case we get separated are also a source of comfort. Some other items, again, having different sensory devices, devices that might have sound locators, things like that that we might need, reading and writing tools, smartwatches, things that aid in grooming or dressing, service animals, things like that. All of these things play a part. So no matter who you are or what your needs are, making sure that you incorporate those into your plans is a key part of having a good, solid, robust plan. Next, I want to touch on shelter in place. Evacuation is the thing I think we always worry about, but there are some circumstances where people would have to shelter in place or basically stay home. I think this is a lot of what we do here in New England, and it seems to be routine for us that if there's a snowstorm, just stay home. If there's an ice storm, just stay home. Shelter in place refers to a situation where physical conditions or environmental conditions make it unsafe to leave. Again, winter weather seems to be our fallback, but it could be something like a tornado, or it could be a chemical spill. Regardless of what it is that's requiring you to stay home, making sure that you have a go bag in place that is also doubling as a stay bag is huge. Shelter in place not only requires access to emergency resources on short notice, but often the use of physical barriers to protect occupants. Remember, we just talked about something like chemical spills. If you have a rail line or if you're near a transportation route where fuel trucks are traveling and there's a spill in your neighborhood, not only do you have to stay in place and make sure that whatever's on the outside is not getting into you. So, sheltering basics. Initial warnings may come from a weather radio or through responders via a siren. Here we tend to get most of our information from the news because we're so rural that having a centralized communication system for our whole community is not always practical. News on when it's safe to leave often comes from our news outlets. Invest in a battery-powered solar or crank radio so you can listen if power is lost during an emergency. If you have to shelter in place and it's an incident that doesn't allow your entire house to be a safe zone, locate a single room that's easy to seal, sturdy, and has protection. The place that you identify might be different depending on the type of emergency. For something like a tornado or an earthquake, the needs might differ from something like a chemical spill. But again, you want to make sure that the room is windowless, has heavy furniture, and not a lot of physical hazards inside of it. You want to keep a bin with sheltering supplies in an easy to reach place, either in that room or near that room where you can grab it and go. Pandemic planning. I think we've got this one down, but again, it's not something that we normally put in our emergency repertoire when we're writing a plan. In case of a mass outbreak of illness or bioterror, health department does provide information to the public. Not only do we have small things like vaccination pods that I think we are all familiar with, if there ever was a mass incident, there is the ability to give out medications as well as vaccines. There are also organizations that will give out commodities such as food or water or other supplies that may be scarce. Pods use basic medical information such as your age, your weight, your allergies to provide medications to you. So knowing your personal medical information, your biometrics will help in this type of emergency, and making sure you have information on others in your home as well as they age, as they grow, and part of your plan will help tremendously. News media is always going to be talking about information and best practice on pandemic planning. As we know, it's an imperfect science, and the things that we think we know sometimes change as we get more information and as we're able to gather more data. So again, just make sure that you know the information that is current on hand and that you're following precautions that are provided by trusted officials. If you do need to access a point of distribution for pandemic planning, pods are noisy and crowded, even though they are accessible. It's best to rely on someone to get your medications who can most easily navigate a pod environment if you have that choice, which is usually the case in a medication pod. For something like a vaccination pod, you have to attend yourself. So if you do have to attend a pod, notify staff if you have a disability or any other need, and see what is best for you to navigate the environment. Often there will be tools on hand, but if you have a certain communication tool to get around in that environment, make sure that not only is that accessible to you, but that others know about your needs. Pods do tend to have interpretation services for American Sign Language and alternate languages if needed. And if you're a veteran or have home health care, you may be part of an agency with special dispensing arrangements and may not need to go to a pod. So discuss with caregivers and other agencies, caseworkers that are involved in your care, what options are available to you. So that answers everything that we have on personal preparedness planning. There are so many resources out there in the community where you can look to. We recommend that you take the time to do your research, to talk to others in your network who may have plans, and to make sure that your plan is holistic. Only when you are able to take care of yourself can you then turn around and help others. Thank you.